Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. I'm your host Daniel Walker, and today I want to talk about Aleksandr Dugin. Not so much him personally, but more his ideology, his background. I also want to talk about the Kremlin and the KGB's involvement with the Russian Orthodox Church. But this is all tied in with Dugin, and of course his personal influence, not only within Russian politics, the alternative media, specifically those in traditionalist or right-wing movements. I understand Wikipedia isn't the best source to use, but we can go through the citations if needed, and I think it's just going to give us a good starting point about this man, because there are some links that I want to show you. So we'll just go through this really quickly. Aleksandr Dugin is a Russian political analyst, a strategist, known for his fascist views. A lot of sources there. He has close ties with the Kremlin and the Russian military. Now we're going to get back to this because this is very important. Having served as an advisor to the State Duma, Speaker Selyanov, a key member of the ruling United Russia Party, and Sergei Naryshkin, Dugin was the leading organizer for the National Bolshevik Party, National Bolshevik Front, and Eurasia Party. He is the author of more than 30 books, among them Foundations of Geopolitics, which I've quoted in previous videos, and The Fourth Political Theory 2009. Now let's just go through this because I found this very interesting. Because I've had people suggest to me that Dugin is actually Christian because of his ties to the Kremlin and the Russian Orthodox Church. So let's just read this. Dugin was baptized at the age of 6 in the Russian Orthodox Church of his great-grandmother. I'm not going to try and pronounce that name. Since 1999, he formally embraced branch of the Old Believers, a Russian religious movement which rejected the 1652 to 1666 reforms of the official Russian Orthodox Church. Dugin's Eurasian philosophy owes much to traditional integralism and Nouvelle Droite movements, and as such it resonates with neo-paganism. I'm going to show you why all of this is relevant, but let's continue for now. A category which in this context means the movement of Slavic native faith, especially in forms of Anastasianism and Yingelism. Note that star. Dugin's Eurasianism is also cited as belonging to the same spectrum of these movements. This is all very relevant. And I'm going to show you some links here in a minute, but I'll continue. As well as having influences from Hermetic, Gnostic, and Eastern traditions. Okay. He himself calls to rely upon Eastern theology and mystical currents for the development of the fourth political theory. Okay, so we're talking about chaos magic. We're talking about the Old Believers. And this sort of branch between paganism and Torah observant old style Judaism. Now this is all relevant because when we look into the Bible, let's see what the book of Matthew says about the Old Believers and the Pharisees. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And he called the multitude and said unto them, Hear and understand. Not that which goeth in the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. He's obviously talking about vain repetitions, and he's talking about the people who haven't left the old covenant. And indeed the old covenant was done away with, because we know Jesus is the fulfillment of that covenant. But I'll just read this. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if the first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. Okay, because we know that the Jews did away with the covenant, because the covenant with the Jews was a two-way street. The Jews didn't keep their end of the bargain, and they were kicked out of the Holy Land. Now, a lot of these Jews back in Jesus' times, the ones that took up stones and tried to kill him, and eventually did kill him, a lot of these people claim to believe in Moses, the old covenant. But all of this was, of course, in vain, because we know that these people, well, as it says here, in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Now you can say this about the Russian Orthodox Church as well. But this neo-pagan element is important, because we know that in the book of Leviticus it talks about the pagans of old requiring child sacrifice. We'll go to Deuteronomy 32:17 here. It says, "They sacrifice unto devils, not to God whom they knew not. To new gods they came newly up. From your fathers feared not." Yeah. Now, just before I move on, I want to show you why not only is he anti-Christian for believing in heresy, but he's actually anti-Christ as well. He rejects Christ. And here's more proof here. In the early 1990s, Dugin's work at the National Bolshevik Front included research into the roots of national movements and the activities of supporting esoteric groups in the first half of the 20th century. Partnering Christian Bouquet, and then former member of the French OTO, and building the national fascist and migratory integrative interest groups in Asia and Europe, they continue in bringing international policies closer to Russia's Eurasian geopolitical concept. The French branch of the OTO. Now, what do we know about the OTO? Well, a lot of people have linked the Ordo Templi Orientis to pedophile black magic. This website here from the Ordo Templi Orientis actually recognizes Dugin as a member of the OTO. Now, if people want to see how the Ordo Templi Orientis is completely connected to a lot of the Pizzagate research, and people like Lady Gaga, Jay-Z, these are all members of the OTO. This is an entire archive on Vote, which goes right into the connections to a satanic cult. This is what I'm sorry, where's this link? This is what Mariana Abramovic and Lady Gaga is involved with. We can scroll down here. There's a strong emphasis on cannibalism. Here she is with Lady Gaga. Now, these are all all of these people are led by Baphomet. And I want to show you why this is all relevant. Aleksandr Dugin is not a Christian. He is not even a Russian Orthodox, but he does have influence in the Russian Orthodox Church. Strangely enough, also he has the ear of Putin. This is all relevant because he's very much one of the architects of the alt-right. We can see many of the links connecting him here, worth considering. Also, this helps explain it as well. This was made by John Swin. If people want to check out his work, they can follow him on Twitter. But this goes right back to Ray Cohn, Robert Maxwell, Roger Stone, Jeffrey Epstein, Alan Dershowitz. I mean, a lot of these people are connected. When we talk about Russian collusion, I think we're really talking about Jewish collusion, specifically Russian Jewish collusion. And I really do think, based on what this is saying about Dugin's theological beliefs, that he is a crypto-Jew. But also he is a member of the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, which some, including child advocacy and the the Australian of the Year candidate Renee Mickelson has linked to child pedophilia networks and child sacrificing networks. But I just wanted to play this because it also shows Dugin's daughter's involvement in all of this as well. She's very much connected to the occult, and they all worship Baphomet. These people are not Russian Orthodox, and they are not pro-West. This is on Magna Opus documentary, The Rise of the Nazbols. I recommend all of you guys check this out, but for now I just want to play this little portion. Pay attention to the photos that were uploaded by Dugin's daughter on social media.
And we are a kind of revolutionary movement that is analogous to the Bolsheviks.
Baphomet. This is Aleksandr Dugin's Facebook. Pay attention. There's his daughter. See, there's the pagan element, the antichrist element, Baphomet. We also have Aleksandr Dugin's reading of Aleister Crowley's Book of Thelema, which is basically more proof that he is a member of the OTO. Let's check it out.
О мой Бог, един Твой исток, един Твой дух, едино Твое изменение. Позволь мне воспеть Твои совершенства перед людьми. В образе шестиконечной звезды, сверкающей сквозь глупые своды, позволь мне объявить о Твоих совершенствах. Ты явился мне как очень старый Бог, достопочтимый Бог, господин времени, с острым серпом. Ты явился мне как радостный и довольный Бог, исполненный...
Anyway, this anti-Ukrainian, anti-West, anti-European, crypto-Jewish, neo-pagan Bolshevik goes on to basically praise the devil and reject Christ, but also he says he talks about a naked boy or something like that. So this really just backs up what I'm talking about. But isn't it interesting that this man has the ear of Putin and is very integral in not only the Russian military but the Kremlin and the Russian Orthodox Church, knowing that he's a member of the OTO, his daughter also, that he is a rejecter of Christ. Isn't that interesting? Well, there is nothing new under the sun, but let's read this because I found this interesting. Here's a quote here. Quote, "Rather than embrace Christianity, the evidence shows Russia has embraced the Russian Orthodox Church, always a tool of Soviet intelligence. Former KGB officer Konstantin has called it, quote, Putin's espionage church, unquote, and devotes a major portion of his book, KGB/FSB, New Trojan Horse, to its use by the Russian intelligence service." Isn't that interesting? That people are claiming that the Russian Orthodox Church is actually, well, a proxy of the KGB. But I'll just play a little bit of this. I'm sure everybody's seen it, but we'll just play it anyway.
И членами его являлись примерно на 80-85% евреи. Но они же, руководствуясь ложными идеологическими соображениями...
Okay, there we have it. Now moving on. This is all relevant. Let's start with Wikipedia, which isn't the greatest source, but like I said, it gives us a good starting indication. There is so much stuff here. I could go on about this on and on and on all day, but I want to try to make this as quick as I can. Clerical collaborations with communist secret services occurred in some Eastern European countries during the Cold War. Now, obviously there was a lot of Christian persecution going around the time that the Soviets took power. Of course, even prior to then, we know that the provisional government and the Bolsheviks were entirely Jewish, but so were the Soviets. And I've done like a whole documentary on this. I don't have the time to get into it right now, but we'll continue. When we go down to Russia, it says here, according to the Mitrokhine archive and other sources, the Moscow Patriarchate has been established on the order from Joseph Stalin in 1943 as a front organization of the NKVD and later the KGB. No huge surprise. All key positions in the church, including bishops, have been approved by the ideological department of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and by the KGB. The priests were used as agents of influence in the world councils of churches and front organizations such as World Peace Council, Christian Peace Conference, and the Rodina Motherland Society, founded by the KGB in 1975. The future Russian Patriarch Alexis II said that Rodina has been created to maintain spiritual ties with our compatriots as one of its leading organizers. According to the archive and other sources, Alexis has been working for the KGB as an agent and received an honorary citation from the agency for a variety of services. Priests have also recruited intelligence agents abroad and spied on Russian immigrant communities. This information by Mitrokhine has been corroborated by other sources. I mean, this is common knowledge at this point. You know, like when we check this citation, it says, according to Konstantin, former chairman of Soviet Council of Religious Affairs, quote, not a single candidate for the office or bishop or any other higher ranking office, much less member of the Holy Synod, went through without confirmation by the Central Committee of the CPSU and the KGB. Alright. It should be common knowledge at this point that the KGB and the Jewish Soviets put the current Russian Orthodox Church in power. So this is another reason to question Dugin's integrity, number one, but also the narrative pushed by some people like Jay Dyer, who constantly push this pro-Russian Orthodox church position along with Dugin's fourth political theory. There's a lot of people that push this into the alt-right and even into a lot of the newer conservative alternative media outlets that are popping up everywhere. It says here, in the early 1990s and later on, Krill was accused of having links to the KGB during much of the Soviet period, as were many members of the Russian Orthodox Church hierarchy, and for pursuing the state's interests before those of the church. His alleged KGB agent code name was Mikhailov. Tony Haplin, Russian Orthodox Church chooses between ex-KGB candidates as patriarch. So there's a lot here. This is on the Washington Post, Russia's well-connected patriarch. Church-state ties. I'll just read this little portion because I'll try to get through this as quick as I can. Like I said, there's so many links here, I don't have the time to get into all of them. Many Orthodox priests were forced by the communists into relationships with the Soviet police, often under threat of execution. Researchers say that evidence indicates that Alexei rose to power in part as a reward for his service as a KGB informant, and that he was decorated for that work as recently as 1988, 2 years before the church leaders elected him patriarch. Alexei declined repeated requests for an interview for this article, but the Reverend Visivold Chaplin, deputy head of the church's Foreign Relations Department, said in an interview in March that clergymen had no choice but to report to Soviet authorities. As long as they did not turn in fellow believers and priests, he said, they did no moral wrong. Quote, to reject Soviet power as something totally bad and to blame someone just for being in good touch with Soviet authorities, I think is a highly politicized approach, he said. Many Russians share the church's attitude that to explore the Soviet Union's grisly past would be useless and painful. So, in a lot of ways, they don't even deny it. There have been a lot of people connected to the church, even bishops, who have given interviews talking about this. We have it here from The Guardian as well. Russian Patriarch was KGB spy. The Sunday Times reports Russian Orthodox Church chooses between ex-KGB candidates as Patriarch. Even the Catholics talk about it. Not that the Catholics are any better, but let's read this little part. A 1983 report from the Central KGB Archives, for example, reveals that when the monks of the Pochiev monastery in western Ukraine were complaining about harsh treatment, including the beating to death of a monk by the KGB and the local abbot, Yakov Punchok, in 1981 to 1982, Alexei was one of the 2 Russian Orthodox leaders sent down there to conduct, quote, educational work among the monks. In February 1988, exactly 30 years after his retirement as an agent, Alexei was given an award by the KGB in recognition for his long service for them. All senior clerical appointments in the Soviet era were made by the KGB and mediated through the government's Council for Religious Affairs, which is the public face of the 4th Department of the KGB 5th Directorate, and many junior appointments besides. Alexei's collaboration was nothing exceptional. Almost all senior leaders of all officially recognized religious faiths, including Catholics, Baptists, Adventists, Muslims, and Buddhists, were recruited KGB agents. Okay, so can you see how a lot of this narrative of Dugin's 4th political theory and the Russian Orthodox Church seeping into the West is actually a product of political subversion by the Soviets? Not to mention the fact that the West relies heavily on its false relationship with Israel, which of course was set up by the Russians. I mean, Israel is the Soviet backdoor into the West. But we also have this political subversion that Yuri Bezmenov warned us about, and it's coming into Christianity through the Russian Orthodox Church, but also into the alternative media and the political atmosphere by none other than Aleksandr Dugin, who of course is a crypto-Jewish Bolshevik who rejects Christ and apparently is a member of the Ordo Templi Orientis. I mean, does this not concern people? We have more links here I won't get into. Why do the Russians trust the church set up by the KGB? There's a lot here. Putin's espionage church. I mean, there's tons of information here. So I hope people are paying attention, because we are looking at political subversion through the back door. Aleksandr Dugin and his puppets like Jay Dyer and Lawrence Southern, they are lying to you. They do not care about the West. They are not Christian. They are anti-Christ. So yeah, that's another video from me, folks. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment your thoughts below. I'm really looking forward to reading those comments and seeing what you guys think about all of this. I'm not trying to be harsh when I'm calling Aleksandr Dugin a reprobate or an evil person. I hope I illustrated that in this video quite clearly, that I'm not exaggerating when I call this guy a Satanist or a communist. So yeah, subscribe to the channel if you're new, folks, and be sure to follow me on Twitter. You can check out my stuff on BitChute if you can't find all of my videos here, because a lot of my censored stuff does end up on BitChute. If you want to support my work, you can do so by following me on Patreon, and a big shout out to everybody who currently does. And that is me for now, folks. Yeah, God bless. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.